pass play because Jimbo Fisher and his offensive line, and they were so poorly coached and trained that they couldn't feel confident about picking up 1 yard when they needed to. Tommy Moffitt's going to make A&M a better team because he's.
Let's hit a break here because we need to do bank on it on the other side. I know Kate's still working. Poor Kate is probably stressed out right now trying to figure out the YouTube stream that is having homes. They got farms. They got wide open space. Back to that native landscape and wildlife. 2,600 acres of open space, farm homes out there. For a long time, we were getting our veggies out there because the veggies were so delicious, and you can connect with native habitat. You'll find all those animals that you love to see out there. You will find woods, the plentiful creeks, and you've got the whitetail. The Milliken Reserve. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Radio, presented by the Warehouse. It's not where it needs to be. Before we ding Luke, I wanted you to hear it, just get your thoughts on what Chuck's takes are on the Mavs there after the Mavs.
A good game. Luka's actually played 3 pretty good games, but the other guy, dude, to ask that question to Luka and to Jason, like, well, Luka's defense, the reason, let's get that out the way. That pissed me off.
Well, 90% of the time, I agree with, and that's it just doesn't make sense to start trashing a guy because, and I don't mean to make excuses for him, but he's not 100% in the finals. And by that, kicked the ball out to the corner, and it's the kid, PJ Washington, is that his name? And he was just, and he and some other guys were just nailing him from the corner. Well, at the volume they were, are probably responsible for that. But to take one of the better players and to just make him the scapegoat and trash him, it just doesn't happen. Absolutely not. There's some criticism that is warranted, but
built for real life. Go see Joel Jackson and the team. You can learn more at verabank.com.
I'm Prager. I know he didn't pitch his.
I've seen many times this year, but not only.
Market. If you got good outfielders, that's definitely a talented. Even with the injury, A&M has talent.
We're going to get bonus OB today because at 10:30, join us as we just close out the week and get you ready for the College World Series, and I'm sure we'll have to get into.
Can you ever have great hour, buddy? Can you ever have too much OB?
I've been there. You can have too much OB. It can happen. 693-1150. As I mentioned, have him with us from 10 to 10:30. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by Studio, and that does it for the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. It should be time for the baseball bunch, but it's just one man right now. Ryan Brauninger, live in Omaha. We're working on getting Scott Clendenin on the program here shortly. I know Richard Zane, I believe, is covering an event. Is that right, Bronny?
Yeah, they just walked out of the house here in Omaha to go to the stadium. We got an email that A&M was having there was going to be a press gathering this morning at Charles Schwab Field, and the A&M media was highly encouraged to attend. So whatever that's about, I guess we'll find out here soon.
Well, hopefully some good news for some of the athletes on the team. Bronny, let's just start getting into the nuts and bolts of this series here. First off, how did the practice session go yesterday? Anything stand out when you were out there?
Yeah, just normal. It felt like they wanted to get a feel for the ballpark. They started doing cuts and relays and throws from the outfield to the bases, and then they took a lot of ground balls, did some team defense stuff, just trying to get acclimated to the ballpark. It's big, man. It's cavernous, and not a lot of balls go out of the ballpark during BP. A&M's not a club that hits a lot of batting practice home runs by design. Florida, on the other hand, I stuck around and watched them. Jack Caglione nearly hit a ball off the scoreboard, so that was something to see. And Florida did hit a ton of batting practice home runs, but that doesn't mean anything in terms of outcomes. It probably means that Florida was maybe it didn't have as much of a plan with their batting practice from a coaching staff perspective. I'm sure their coaching staff just said, hey, get up there, free swing, see how the ball flies, that kind of thing. It looked like A&M was more in their routine that they would have like a pregame BP where you saw some guys really working on hitting the ball the other way. And again, it's not something that A&M strives for is batting practice home runs, but it was interesting to see the ball flight. I think the wind is going to change today than what we've seen the last couple of days up here. And then there's supposed to be a little bit of a front that moves through, according to Jim Schlossnagle. I haven't even looked at the weather. That's a bad job of me as an analyst. But it's definitely a cavernous ballpark, big to the gaps. Ball doesn't fly nearly like it does at Bluebell Park. So I think, when you're playing a team like Florida to start tomorrow, Florida wants to kind of do the same things offensively that A&M does, but they swing more. So, you have to avoid putting them on base. You especially want to avoid putting them on base ahead of Caglione. From an A&M perspective, maybe you can't rely on the long ball as much, but you can rely on getting on base and getting to first base. What we've seen A&M do the last few weeks, David, and we haven't even talked about it, is they've stolen more bases in the last month than they did from February to May. Since the middle of May, really, it feels like the base running has taken off in terms of being more aggressive to steal bases, and they've gotten that in their game. But whenever your offense hit a little bit of a lull, you start looking for ways to maintain your run outputs, and stealing bases, those extra 90 feet, they add up. And so I think that A&M, we've seen them throughout the course of the year be able to play a lot of different versions of baseball and win. And they'll need that this week, because I don't think that the traditional sit back and wait for your doubles and home runs is going to be, I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't think, with the way the ballpark plays, I don't think that's going to be the recipe for the entire week.
Bronny, does the way the ballpark plays in Omaha help anybody considerably in the field of 8?
Yeah, I was actually talking to a lot of media members that were gathered yesterday as, the teams were coming in and out, and at least on this side of the bracket, it looks like it would probably help Kentucky more, because they bunt, they like to run bases, they do some kind of quirky things offensively where they don't rely on a lot of gap power, home run power to produce their runs. Now, they're obviously playing in a field of teams that are uber talented and will probably be the best in the country at defending that style of offense, but still, and who knows? Last year in the championship series between Florida and LSU, balls were flying out of the yard here like crazy. So, and we don't know either, David, how the ball is going to be. The College World Series baseball can be, in the years past, it has been different than the postseason baseball. So, how is the ball flying? What kind of ball are they sending to Omaha this year? There's a lot of things that we'll get information on, at least today, when they start at 1 p.m.
What do we like about this matchup, and what do we not necessarily like about this matchup?
I think what you like about it is A&M's propensity to find ways to get on base. Like A&M's on base percentage, I think is a key factor when looking at this Florida game. Now, that's all kind of determined by how Florida's going to throw the ball over the plate. And, they're starting a kid in Liam Peterson who's been pretty good over the last 4 weeks. His overall season numbers leave a little bit to be desired, but he's a talented kid that's been better in the postseason. But he will walk you. But I think that Kevin O'Sullivan went with him because he, in terms of his starters, he does give them the best opportunity to throw the ball over the plate, but he still will walk you. But Florida is setting this thing up to try to get to their stud reliever, Brandon Neely. Like, he has been dynamite over the last month, and really in this postseason when Florida's made their run. And so I think that they're just trying to get outs, as many outs as they can, squeeze as much as they can out of Peterson before they hand the ball to Neely. But I still like A&M's discipline at the plate. I like A&M's overall athleticism to once they get on base. Florida's got a bunch of freshman arms, and they can be taken advantage of if they get in base stealing opportunities. They got some long hold, long leg times that I think A&M can take advantage of. Where I don't like the matchup is just Florida is such an anomaly, man. Or such an enigma because of what their season told us they were, and then what the postseason has told us they were. So which Florida is showing up? Is it the good Florida that you played in Gainesville? I think that A&M, you should assume that that's what you're getting. But if it's not, it's just they've been so Jekyll and Hyde all year, and depending on which one shows up, it can make for some pretty nervy moments if the good Florida shows up. And then obviously Jack Caglione, and I hope I'm not being hyperbolic here, but legitimately one of the best college baseball players ever. Think about that. I mean, he's an elite left-handed pitcher. He's hit 34 home runs this year. He hit 30 home runs last year. Jim Schlossnagle said in front of the gathered media yesterday that he is the best defensive first baseman that he's ever seen in college baseball. So when you have a player like that in the opposing dugout and in the opposing batter's box, that scares you, right? And he can change the game, and you just hope that he walks to the plate in situations where you can be really picky with him, meaning there's a base open, maybe 2 outs, a base open, or he's coming up with 2 outs and nobody on, or any time with nobody on. So that would be the recipe for success, is just trying to limit Caglione's opportunities to drive runs in.
Let's go a little bit deeper into Brandon Neely, too, who all indications has been just locked down there in the postseason.
Yeah, and it's a kid that A&M saw during that series in Gainesville, and he was successful against the Aggies. I believe closed out the finale in that 4-2 win for Florida. It's kind of a crossfire right-handed action. I think his release point's a little bit higher than most. Creates good ride on his fastball, and then just like everybody else in this league that's really good, high rod fastball and a power slider. I mean, you see it. We saw it out of Cal Stephen out of Mississippi State. There's a lot of arms, big right-handed arms in this league that create that same kind of action. Durangelo, St. Joe, Mississippi State, just so much ride and run to pair with a slider. And it's like the velocity numbers on the radar gun aren't going to look like St. Joe, where it's going to be 96 to 100, or Chris Cortez, but it's still going to play in that 90 to 95 range. And you can always tell what a pitch is doing by the way hitters react to it, right? Like Chris Cortez's slider, he gets all different types of reactions out of hitters, and none of them are good. They swing at it when it's in the other batter's box. It buckles them when it's in the strike zone. And a lot of times they just they can't even make moves at it. So he gets all different scenarios play out, none of which are positive. So that should tell you everything about the pitch. You watch Brandon Neely pitch, and everything always looks so much easier from the center field camera when you're sitting at home. It looks so much easier. But what are the reactions? What do the swings look like whenever he's on the mound? And he gets a lot of swing and miss for a guy that doesn't throw in, not upper 90s to 100. So, and he's competitive. He's experienced. He is Florida's bell cow. I mean, he's their Evan Aschenbeck when they bring him into the game when they need to calm the seas or they need to win the game. He is the guy that's going to go to the mound.
Ryan Brauninger is in Omaha. It is the baseball bunch. Richard Zane's at a press conference. I'm not sure where Scott Clendenin is. I know he was going to join us here at some point, so hopefully we'll get Scotty in here So I know Schloss yesterday spoke a little bit about Ryan Prager and some of the issues. What have you noticed here in this last couple of starts of kind of
Well, hold
difficult
on.
getting going?
Time out. And I thought Schloss was going to say this because he kind of had a pause. And I don't know who asked that question. But Ryan Prager, questionable? When? One outing against Oregon? Now, find me the other bad one. After ripping off, what was it, 8 or 9 in a row, he was incredible, unbeatable at home. And thanks to his offense, I'm not throw strikes. He's got the analytics of his stuff down the list. And I don't know, he goes missing. And I felt like, I sometimes baseball's just weird like that, but I'm not going to go into Ryan Prager struggling when he's had one bad.
Read this because people misinterpreted what we said in the first few minutes. Zane going to our press conference. Somebody put a thread up that says, emergency press conference. This can't be good news. I'm not a negative person, but what could it be? For context, Bronny just said on there was an unplanned press conference. Yeah, an unplanned press conference means, and I don't even know if unplanned is the right word.
It wasn't unplanned. We got a heads up on it 2 days ago.
And we were just highly encouraged to be there. That's it. Right.
And we're getting to the point of the season where they're going to be handing out end of the year awards. There's somebody on the A&M roster who has had a sensational season and career that is up for one of those awards. So that might be what it is.
I hope so. And I'm not going to ask a question of who that player might be because I'll just let people wonder who it might be.
So stay close to your phone. Stay close to your computer. TexAgs.com.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to close out this segment with any details about who could get what or what. I'm just going to say we're going to keep talking. Hey, I'm going to ask you another question that might irritate you. You ready for it? It's 231 in the postseason. You can't just look at the average and tell you, your eyes tell you, is he making what is
one of your better self-deprecating without Braden Montgomery hitting behind him. I think Jason, people are going to be up, and without Braden hitting bases when he can. I think that the reins a little bit, and if we start seeing Jace swipe bags, then it sets A&M up as if they're going to be super picky with Jace, and we know he'll take his walks. Like he'll stand up there and not swing, not expand the zone. He's been great about it this year. I liked where he ended the Oregon Regional, Super Regional, excuse me. Like I thought that he was trying to hit a homer, and that was you don't see Jace do that very often, but the rest of them, I thought he was great. And Jace, if he just keeps having quality, it's too big. He's too strong.
On YouTube still going on. So hopefully on, what do we call it? It's just Caldwell Online, Caldwell Country, the pricing, and of course the trade-in value that you will get all around the place. You've got RC Slocum who buys his vehicles there. Caldwell Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. do to watch Ryan Brauninger in a John Travolta Staying Alive kind of a white outfit dancing. To me, that would make history right there.
I don't do white outfits.
No?
No. I mean, I need all the help I can get in terms of body shape. And, they say black makes you skinny. So most of my wardrobe is as dark as possible.
I think you would look great in a...
No, you don't.
Tony Manero. What was his name in that movie?
Tony Manero?
Well, I can't remember his name. It's something like that, right?
In what movie? I don't know what you're referencing.
Saturday Night Fever?
My dad made me watch that when I was real little, but I don't remember it.
Thanks for making me feel like I'm 86.
Well,
That's Brian Brauninger. Hey, Bronny, I told you last segment, I wanted to ask you about Liam Peterson, the starting pitcher here for the Saturday afternoon or Saturday night game, I should say. What do you know about him? I know he's been a riser for them.
Yeah, freshman arm, super highly coveted recruit. They lost that game he pitched on March 16th against A&M. And, through the first 2 months of the season, he was pretty up and down. Now, Florida hasn't lost a game in which Liam Peterson has pitched since April 19th against Vanderbilt. In May and in June, they have not lost when he's pitched, but he's had some up and down outings, 4 innings, 1 inning, 6 innings, and he had back-to-back 5.1 innings, and then last week at the Super Regional at Clemson, 1 inning, 3 hits, I believe it says 3 runs. So he's been a little bit of an up and down guy. I feel like you can make that comparison with maybe a Justin Lampkin or a Tanner Jones on the A&M staff. Like, there's enough there that keeps you intrigued, but there's also some real head scratchers mixed in. But again, like, his job is just to get this thing to Brandon Neely. Brandon Neely, I think, threw 247 pitches, like in a span of, I can't remember if it was 7 days, 6 days, something like that. Like, it was crazy. And Florida really rode him to get to this point. And you have to wonder, does it take any kind of toll on his body? But with the adrenaline of playing in a College World Series game, you'd lean toward not. Like, you'd lean toward getting whatever the best version of Brandon Neely is. But for Liam Peterson, like, his job is to, keep getting outs, and they'll pull him whenever they feel like he's lost his effectiveness. It's no different than when Brad Rudis goes out there as an opener. So I think the Aggies, well, again, like, you can be patient with him. He'll walk you a little bit. He's got good stuff. He is a young arm, though. So, like, how does he manage the scenario, the situation of pitching in the College World Series will be interesting to see.
What kind of role do you see Justin Lampkin having at the College World Series?
Well, we'll see. Like, I think it could obviously, factor in, with a left-handed arm down as in Shane Sadeo, somebody's got to go get those innings, whether it's he or Caden Wilson. And, Justin has experience starting games and Caden Wilson does not. So it seems like that would remain, like, if A&M needed, or they got to a spot where they needed Justin Lampkin and they needed a left-handed starter, he would probably get the call. Just because he's more familiar with doing it. He's got 2 years of starting games under his belt. So I think if, you made me pick, I would think he's going to start a game in Omaha rather than coming out of the bullpen. But which one? Who knows? I mean, what you've essentially got here is a regional and then a super regional. Like, you got to win 3 games to get to the final series. Then you got to win 2 games in the final series. So it's essentially like doing what you've done the last 2 weeks, just in, compressed over the course of, 10, 11, 12 days. So I think it's certainly more manageable because you play every other day. You can be a little bit more aggressive with Cortez or Aschenbeck or Rudis out of the bullpen if you need to, because you're going to get a day's rest. You're not going to need them to pitch in back-to-back days. But Justin Lampkin is certainly a guy that once Shane Sadeo went down, that we all started circling and going, okay, now where's his role? And we said it all year, whether it was somebody that we were talking about like a Justin Lampkin, who started the year in the rotation, or now it's Zane Badmiev, who has emerged over the last month to be a reliable right-handed option out of the bullpen. Somebody you don't expect is going to have to get big outs. Now, Justin Lampkin has struggled over the back half of the season. He might have to get massive outs in Omaha. Zane Badmiev, who was just a midweek guy for the most part, for the first part of the season, you might have to call on him to get massive outs in Omaha. Like, it's all hands on deck. This isn't a feelings week. You don't care how your arm feels. This is Omaha. Go pitch. Go get guys out. And the compete factor has to be at an all-time high for everybody in the bullpen. Jim Schlossnagel has said, who's going to be the Caden Kent of the pitching staff? He challenged the pitchers about that. They had a meeting about it. Max Wiener was like, who's going to be our Caden Kent? We had a guy go down. Who's going to be our guy that steps up in massive moments for this club? So I think the coaching staff is prepared for it. They're looking for it. And I think like those guys are ready to step up. They're going to have to.
Does Chris Cortez's role potentially change? And I know his role doesn't change, but knowing you have 2 lockdown guys, if you get significant pitching from Ryan Prager, 6 innings, let's say 5-6 innings, does it change? Like maybe do you save Cortez for a game 2, knowing you have Evan Aschenbeck, or
What's
no?
The score?
You're up 5-2.
5-2. I think that Cortez would be coming into the game without question.
So the goal is to stay on the winner's side and then worry about game 2 later.
Because you've got that day rest. The ESPN radio in Omaha is calling me, David. So we'll probably need to cut this here in just a second. But because you've got a day's rest, you can be more aggressive with Chris when he comes in the game. Same with Evan, right? And you can extend them a little bit more. But I think you do whatever you can here to win games, and winning the first 2 goes a super long way. So you fire every bullet you've got to try to win these first 2 games.
Bronny, go enjoy that ESPN hit. We'll talk to you later, buddy.
Yeah, see you, man.
Later. Brian Brauninger, they're live from Omaha. We'll hit a break. Scott Clendenin will join us here to finish out the baseball bunch, broken up into 2 different 30-minute segments without Richard Zane. I know it's confusing, but we'll do that on the other side. Right now, Rollo Insurance, the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio, the difference is real. They are super local. They're national, but they're super local. Their headquarters is on Highway 6, right? You can find Jackson and Jason all around town. And when you see them, they'll probably want to talk Aggie sports with you. That's what they do. But they also want to make sure that they take care of you, because the difference is real in the way they find insurance for your family. They want to do the shopping for you so that you can accomplish your insurance goals. I mentioned that they are super local. They have 53 offices in the great state of Texas, but you can find them outside of Texas as well. And they can write any form of insurance to anyone. The headquarters is on Highway 6 in College Station. Call them up, 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. That is 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. We are back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, splitting up the baseball bunch into little segments because of work schedules, interviews, and whatnot. Scott Clendenin joining us now. Scotty, I am confused. What city are you in?
I'm in College Station. I apologize. I misread your note and made you work with Brawny half an hour by yourself.
Oh, it's all good, buddy. It's all good. He was talking about wearing a Staying Alive outfit, so we're looking forward to seeing Brawny in all white. Hey, let's talk about this matchup with Florida. I asked Brawny, I'll get your take on it. What do you like about the matchup versus Florida, a team that A&M did lose their first SEC series to? But and what do you not like about it?
Well, I think that Florida's probably better now. I think that Coach Naegeli made a very valid point about that, the young pitchers they had, freshman pitchers kind of grew up in the SEC. We've seen that with A&M in the past. And so they're a little bit different. Is their stuff going to be any better? No, but they'll have more control of their emotions, especially playing at such a big stage. That is, so huge to go to Omaha and be a freshman. A&M's got some freshmen and Grahovic and Sorrell that's going to have to experience the same thing. Until you're out there in front of 25,000 people at that setting, which has been the promised land, something when you decide you're going to be a college baseball player that you've been there, to be there for the first time ever is going to be real exciting. And I think that all the freshmen in the game have to control that. Now, starting pitchers have to ramp that up to an even higher degree. So, that's going to be a big question mark for Florida. What I like about A&M is that this is a team that did take a series from A&M. I think that gets the attention of A&M in a very good way is, hey, we fought tooth and nail with this team. We were in that last game. We were unable to get the winning hit, but look how that series went. Look how much we've changed since then. But we have to be ready to have a great series because we already know that they can beat us 2 out of 3. And I think that focus gets really locked in. Maybe if you played Vandy, who you swept, or if you had played, somebody that you had huge numbers in some of those games against, is the focus really there? Well, human nature is we've already taken care of business with this team. You don't have to worry about that. These guys are going to be, focused in and locked in on Florida from the get-go.
Outside of their youth, Scotty, are they vulnerable in other places?
No, I think they're defensively, they're still really good. Some of the guys that had big series against A&M offensively, that was a blip and not what their whole season entailed. The interesting thing is Caglione has not been as good this year pitching as he was last year. Now, you don't know when or if you'll see him. He pitched in game 2 of, last week. They didn't pitch him in game 1. So I think they understand that, he is more still a prospect as a pitcher as opposed to being a finished product. He's still very, very good. When he's locked in, you saw how he was against Lampkin in that third game when those two guys really went back and forth in a great pitch ball game. But I think that I don't know how much they want to pitch him, and I don't know if they would even roll the dice on saying, hey, it's time in this first ball game. It changes their lineup a lot when they have to put him to the mound, lose the DH. It's a lot easier for them to start him, put in the backup catcher, move the catcher to first base to play for him. And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't necessarily use him as a bullpen guy, because they're not starting him as a DH. They're playing him at first base because he makes their defense exponentially better. The games that I've seen, it's been a good defense, but you're moving the catcher behind to first base. He's not nearly the guy defensively that Caglione is.
Where do you think A&M is potentially vulnerable here in this series?
Well, I still think you've taken a huge bat out of the lineup, and I think that maybe against left-handed pitching, because you've taken a switch hitter out, and now Caden Kitt only being a left-handed hitter, is that gonna be part of the story? Is his ability to hit lefties and have success against lefties? Because I don't think that A&M's going to do a lot of pinch hitting for at second base and in center field. I think they're going to let Kent run there. Maybe there'll be a situation where you switch that, but I think that they're going to, kind of roll with the lineup they had this last week. So left-handed pitching, against a guy that really has, been seeing mostly right-handers in Caden Kent. That's a question mark. Mostly, I think the team is fine. I think that the second pitcher, I have trust in Lampkin. I've seen him at the SEC tournament. I've seen him in big series in the SEC this year. I think he's a guy that has had success, and I would just think that there would be some trust in him to put him out there, and that he would be ready to show at the highest stage. He is your most experienced pitcher besides Ryan Prager, and he has shut down stuff. And I think that would be a big key for the Aggies.
How do you think they attack Jace Lavalette, considering Braden Montgomery is not there, so there's not that protection that he once had?
Well, I think that Grahovic is the guy that really is the one who's had to change. I think that if Grahovic, can swing the bat and get hits during this tournament, that I think that you're kind of you would see this offense carry on like it had. I think that Jackson Appel gives you a good guy at the top of the lineup. Now you've got a switch hitter up there, and go back to back with switch hitters. That causes problems for the opponent. Whereas now the right-handers is going to see two switch hitters to start it, and then go lefty-lefty after that, or where Burton's going to mix in there. I just think that the left-right and the switch hitters have given A&M balance all year long. I don't think it's going to change. The one thing at the bottom of the lineup is now you may have, you may split the lefties in Kent and Sorrell. That's a spot where A&M has put a right-hander in there. So they still have the balance. I think the key is Grahovic more than it is Lavalette. I think he knows how he's going to be pitched. I think he's already seen Florida pitch him, how they're going to pitch him. My question would be, does Grahovic have the kind of weekend that he offers the protection, and they have to throw it out the window and say, well, he's still the same guy that led off and was an All-American on this team all year long.
So, how would you, let me see how I want to phrase this. There's some talk out there on the boards and on social media of A&M not playing their best ball recently, even though they haven't lost a postseason game, well, since Hoover, I should say. And then Newsweek kind of sums it up like this, because sometimes when you're too inside, Scotty, it becomes difficult to kind of see what the big picture is. But here's what Newsweek says about the way A&M is playing. The Aggies breathed through the Bryan College Station Regional, where they won 3 games by combined 21-6, and their super regional battle with Oregon scored a total of 25 runs against the Ducks to win comfortably in 2 games. That's why this team is heavily favored. I say that, so in your opinion, are they playing well? Are they, and that's with Ryan Prager having a struggle and Jace not really producing the way we're used to seeing Jace produce.
I think so, and I think I've been harping on it, and I think that I'm kind of negative to the point of, yes, I go back and say A&M. A good game for A&M is a game where A&M has a chance to win the game. And A&M has had one game this season where they didn't have a chance to win the game. And that was the middle game against Mississippi. Every other game they've had a chance to win. Even the games against Oregon where they got behind early, they had a chance to win because they found somebody to come in and stabilize the pitching, and then they were able to rally with their offense. So if the point is to win the game, and even against LSU, when you played bad defensively, you had a breakdown in part of your game, which has been pretty solid. A&M has had a chance to win the game. That's why they're one of the favorites to win this tournament. All the other teams, except for maybe Tennessee, have had their moments where they've gotten hammered, and they've had no chance to win more than just one time. So A&M has lost 2 series since the opening week of conference play. And I think that they are in a position where they should be the favorite on their side of the bracket because they do have experience. Kentucky is a very good team. I think Kentucky, Arkansas, and Tennessee were in front of A&M at the end of the year in conference standing because they played Missouri, not because they were significantly better than A&M. They got to play Missouri, and A&M didn't. So I think that all washed out. Like I think I said that like the second or third show we had, that I thought that was going to be as important to the standings is anything that happened in the league was, were you going to have those teams sweep, and they did, and A&M had to play at Florida. It's a completely different situation if they had Missouri on their schedule.
Scotty, let's hit a break so Bronny can rejoin us on the other side of the next segment, so we have a more of a formal baseball bunch. We'll get into Bronny and Scotty on the other side. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
You're muted on Zoom.
Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Baseball bunch, 2/3 of the guys are here with us finally for one short segment here. Bronny, I'm going to start with you, and Scotty, I want you to also chime in on this. The opening day mentality that this team has always had, and they preach it. They preached it yesterday at the press conference. How difficult is that when you get to this stage? But knowing them, it's part of the process, right?
Yeah, opening day, it shouldn't be very hard to get up for an opening day mentality in Omaha. I think the harder job is to maintain a steady heartbeat and get yourself back to even, right? Like, a lot of these games can be determined, especially early on, based off who handles playing in this environment, in this atmosphere. So, like, getting yourself excited to go to the ballpark won't be the issue. It'll be can you get yourself back to neutral to go play a game and not try to play on this high of playing and competing in the College World Series?
Scotty?
Well, I think that, and this is going to sound strange. Omaha is special. It has a special atmosphere. But what A&M has experienced at home and the excitement level that has been around the baseball team has just been at a tremendously high level, okay, in front of a packed house with people outside. The stadium is not as big, but every single spot, everyone yelling about your game, you just experience excitement at an extremely high level. And I think that plays well for this Aggie baseball team. Now, to go there, to face a team as good as Florida can be and has been since after going 0-1 at the SEC tournament, that can be a different level. But I'm excited. I think I saw the guys in the dugout. I looked down in the dugout when they rallied, when Kent got it going, and they were going crazy and excited. And I looked over there, and the head man, Jim Schlossnagle, is locked in and focused and thinking about what he's going to have to do to win that ball game the rest of the way out. Now let's give the ball to Aschenbeck, which is, pretty good coaching when he says, okay, I'm not going to go with Stewart. I'm going to go with Aschenbeck and win instead, and we're going to lock this down. But he was locked in. He has an even keel that can keep the guys, that they can look at their leader and say, this guy is staying level. And I think that's huge for this team because they've experienced some highs and they've had in-game lows. But most of this year has been victory after victory. And I think that that's a huge key, that you'll have guys to look to that are your coaches that'll be on an even keel.
It's very difficult, I think, to always take on the personality of your head coach, unless it's a bad personality. That bad teams do take on the personalities of bad coaches, but not all good teams take on the personality of a good coach. How does this team, Bronny, always find a way, the even keel? If the game requires them to play at a higher level defensively, or grind through injury, or grind through an offensive onslaught, how do they always find a way?
Well, I think it goes back to the off-season training, all the mental training that they do. And, I think over the course of Jim Schlossnagle's career at Texas A&M, those first two teams were very different than this one in terms of how they went about playing the game. We've talked about it a lot. The first 2 years was a more stoic, more mature, buttoned up. This group likes to let their hair down and have a little fun. But what we've seen so many times, that even with that, you have that strong, resolute spirit in the dugout, right? Like we've seen so many times this team, and it'll fool you a little bit because you watch Hayden Schott and those guys dance around, and that can kind of lead your mind askew and not make you realize how tough they are, how much they care about each other, the camaraderie, the brotherhood. And then just the experience. I mean, you look at these guys up and down the lineup, whether it be at Texas A&M or elsewhere, they have kind of gone into this conglomeration of experienced, having fun, tough, hard-nosed players as the upper class group. And then where the lower class, those freshmen, Gavin Grahovic doesn't act like an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, and he really isn't one anymore with all the experience he's got. But even the day he stepped foot on campus, he was wise beyond his years. So that has certainly helped. But you ask how first of all, they're able to win all these and play in these different kinds of games because they're super talented. Like, they're super good, and talented teams can win a lot of different ways. That's the goal when Nolan Cain is building and constructing the rosters, build one that can win a lot of different ways. But that's not the only factor. Like, you have to have that mental fortitude, the mental training to understand what you're about to go through and get yourself always back to neutral. You can get excited at times. We saw that dugout in that stadium after the Kent Grand Slam. Like, you get up emotionally, but you've got to go back out. And Evan Aschenbeck's got to trot out there and get it back to even and just go start playing the game again and start getting out. So that's what this team, I think, has done so good at. Whether it's the high or the low, they do a good job of getting it back to even.
Scotty, there's a question that I don't really know how to answer because it's a different season, it's a different personnel, it's different storylines. But here's one from a 4-3-2. How do you explain the season A&M's had after the heartbreak in last year's Supers?
Well, I think that you added a guy that certainly, gave you some of those problems in Stanford, yes, there was heartbreak. One team wins. I mean, I think that's one of the things that Jim Schlossnagle keeps saying is, I want to be the one team. I go through this. It was heartbreaking 2 years ago when you tied for third. Okay. This team wants to be the last team standing. So they from the end of the College World Series, end of Super Regional last year, they were working to get back to this point. Now they've done that. They get to play in this tournament. And I think that Jim Schlossnagle can compartmentalize this tournament because he's talked about it. I coach a tournament, a regional, and then I coach super regional. Now he is saying, hey, I got to coach a regional type tournament to get to a super regional type tournament. He's approaching it the perfect way. It's the reason why he's thought about this so long to get his coaching and get his team to the point where they're ready to play those little tournaments and win those tournaments, because it's play one game at a time to win that tournament. And he does it at a great level that this team isn't even thinking about the disappointment of last year anymore. That's all behind them. All those players that are on this team, I don't think any of them are thinking about how they lost to Stanford in regional play anymore.
Bronny, what's the biggest key to A&M surviving this game against Florida and being on the winner's side?
Yeah, I think it's functioning offensively and what that means in a stadium like this and weather conditions like this. And then what happens on the pitching side. I think a starter has still not been officially named. There's some rumors starting to emanate here in Omaha. But we'll see, once that official announcement is made. But I don't think it'll be Chris Cortez, but I do think Chris Cortez, when he comes into the game, and the role that he plays will have a massive influence on the outcome.
Hey, and Scotty, you can be the first one. Stopper of the year goes to Evan Aschenbeck. It was just announced by the NCBWA. So
there's
Scotty,
your emergency press conference. That's what that was about. By the way, that blew up on the message boards. I don't think I ever said emergency press conference.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Scotty, we got about a minute left. Go ahead.
I voted for him for that. I'm a member of the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association. My 5 guys, I had All-American, made first and second team. He has been the guy. And when you've got him and Cortez and the space that can be built into this tournament, it's going to be very hard for anybody that's trailing A&M after the 5th inning to beat A&M in these games.
Bronny, what's the headline going to be on Monday morning?
Well, I hope the Aggies are looking to go 2-0 and get to a bracket final. But I think I think the stars are going to have to be stars, and then you're going to have a Caden Kent performance somewhere. Whether it's Caden Kent in the lineup or is it somebody out of the bullpen, I don't know. But again, we're not talking. We're past feelings and personal accolades now. Like, it's team, and so the team is going to have to play at a really high level.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David.
All right. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Billy Liucci at some point. We'll chit-chat with Billy for half an hour before Olin rejoins us. It's TexAgs Radio. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jules Ruller Insurance Studio. Should have Billy Liucci on the program here momentarily. As a reminder, just a few minutes ago, we found out that Evan Aschenbeck wins the Stopper of the Year from the NCBWA Awards. Richard Zane and the crew are there covering that press conference as we speak. A picture was just posted with Evan and his family. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, check in with Matthew Dawson to see what's popping.
Well, what's going on? I just saw an article that actually came out in the last 24 hours. Cody Naegeli from 247 Sports, he wrote about college football's most impactful transfers on the defensive side of the ball in the transfer portal era. So this includes players like Tyree Wilson, Drew Sanders, Jared Verse, Leatu Latu, right? All first-round draft picks. With all the talk about Nick Gordon, David, what do you think Nick Gordon has to do to get himself on that list?
I struggle with lists, Matthew, because they're just opinions of people who don't know anything. And I mean that for everybody. Like, nobody knows anything. I can tell you this, that what Nick Gordon did at Purdue in a big-time conference, to me, speaks enough, right? And what he's going to be able to do for A&M. Let's go to the hotline because Billy Liucci is joining us here on a Friday morning. Billy, good morning, buddy.
David, what's happening, buddy?
Hey, I wanted you to react quickly or as much time as you want on Aschenbeck winning the Stopper of the Year, something that I think none of us are surprised by.
No surprise, but still really cool, special for Evan. It was earned. When somebody earns it on the field, you just hope they're recognized and honored for it in the postseason, and that's what he got, and it's a huge honor, and he's the best in the business for a reason.
When you think about this matchup this weekend with Florida, what do you think is the most important? Is the most important thing Ryan Prager being able to give the Aggie bullpen some distance? Is the most important thing getting Jace going? What do you think is the most important thing?
Well, I'm sorry. I was sitting here ordering, and I wanted to finish on Evan. I thought you were going to do a follow-up on that one, but
you stopped abruptly, so.
I know, because I pulled up here to get my coffee. And listen, what he's done, not just this year, but in his career, is like legendary stuff. It really is. And it's exceptional, like truly exceptional, and by definition of the word. It's not like he's an outlier in college baseball with what he does. And then when you combine his efficiency and effectiveness and actually flat-out dominance with his path to how he got here, it's even more incredible. I doubt very seriously that when Jim Schlossnagle got here, he would have ever envisioned that Evan was going to play the role that he has in the team results that the teams he's been on have produced. He's one of the best players. We always talk about the bats, and obviously starting pitching always gets the attention, but no one, probably Braden Montgomery and Evan Aschenbeck, as good at what they do for this baseball team. But then there's so many other cool stories. I want to talk about that in a second. But Evan is, to me, he's had what you damn near call, it's been as close to perfection this year as you can get. He really has. And it's just cool to see him get that award. Great kid, competitive as hell. That's the other thing, just an absolute dog of a competitor. And by the way, I also love his walk-up song, too. Not because I like the song, that's part of it, but because that's just I'm walking out to the mound, I'm a badass song. That's what a closer has to have. They have to have a badass song. And that is, I think that's a great song to come out to, just the way it starts. And I think it gets everybody just really jacked up. There's no doubt about it.
Billy, you mentioned there's a bunch of other stories that you love on this roster. So let's go through some of those. What are some of the other stories that you really think need to be told?
Obviously, they've been told all year, but it's just when you say them all together, right, you realize this is a very unique team. There's all the transfer stories, and there's, obviously Braden just, thank you, the part of him. See, this is when you don't want people to be nice, Nuño. You know, we're on radio. They don't need to say have a good day, but they do because people are nice in this town. That's why we love it. No, look, Braden Montgomery's story was incredible anyway because he was one of the best players in the country last year. You got him in the portal. Massive news. He not only lived up to, but exceeded everything you thought you were getting in him, both on the field and off, and as a person and as a player. And then even the way his season ended is a massive storyline. It's you know, it's baseball tragic for him personally. It's devastating. He'll be back, be a great pro, but it's devastating because, you know, anyone that knows him knows how badly he wanted to help lead this team in Omaha and get back there in Maroon White. But man, like, go around the room too, and Gavin Grahovic, what a freshman season, incredible freshman season. Caden Sorrell coming on, you know, as the season develops and becoming a big part of it. Caden Kent, what more needs to be said? We've all taught Caden Kent all week, and rightfully so. Ryan Prager coming back from missing last season with an arm injury. You have Chris Cortez, probably one of the, if there was a comeback player of the year, or not comeback, Prager could win the comeback. Chris Cortez could win. He's probably one of the most improved players in college baseball this season. We talk about Oschenbeck coming out of the pen. Cortez has been pretty much just as good. I mean, that's as good a 1-2 punch as there is in the country, and that's why A&M's here today. So I'm sure, I know I'm forgetting one because I'm just ripping through it off the top of my head, but just an amazing collection of storylines for this team, and it's what's made them so fun to follow and why we all are just sitting there, fingers crossed, and not just fingers crossed and hoping for luck, but you're just hoping that the best version of this A&M team shows up in Omaha, because if they do, they have a real chance, even with a couple of devastating injuries.
Billy, it's interesting you say that because it's true. You pick anybody in the lineup, right? You just point at somebody. Caden Sorrell, there's a story there. Ali Camarillo, there's a story there. All of them have something, and we all can point at moments throughout the season where like they had this huge impact, right? Like, and I think that's why there is so much optimism, because it doesn't just come down to Braden Montgomery. It doesn't just come down to Jace Lavalette or Ryan Prager. Those guys need to be stars, but all of them have had their say in this story.
You know, and look, we know that a lot of, you know, we don't follow the Florida Gators like we do A&M. We don't follow, you know, NC State. You know, how about their story? They were basically, half their team couldn't play due to COVID in the championship game a year ago, you know, or a year ago, 4 years ago during COVID. And you know, North Carolina with all these walk-offs they've been winning with. Tennessee, you know, can they go from 2 years ago where they don't even make it as the alleged greatest team of all time, and you know, they make this full turnaround, you know, and win the thing? There's a ton of storylines. Everybody's got their players with storylines, but this just feels like a team that's heavy in that department, and because of that, Nuño, I think that's a part of why they're such a close knit bunch. And I think Slosh has been really smart this year. Now, look, I think he reinvented himself a little bit coming from TCU. And by saying that, I think he just kept what he knows works in coaching, and he stayed true to who he is. But I think he also let go of the reins a little bit in terms of, I think these teams here, he's joked about it, about Rattling Bog and all. He's let in the Pringles a couple of years ago. If you know Slosh, it's not really his style. It's not really his personality, but he's let it go a little bit. And I think the kids, I think he's got a better relationship with them. He's got a great relationship with these TCU guys, because I've been with him when he's taken phone calls from them years later. But I just think he is commandeering kind of a thing where he's letting the guys be a little looser, and they're kind of making him a little looser as well. Now, I'm sure him and the other coaches and players would roll their eyes if they heard that comment, but he really is. And I think a lot of that has to do with these players and they're just kind of not going to be denied having fun and enjoying it. And I think he recognized that and said that this is how they're going to be at their best. And it's hard to coach guys like that. It's hard to coach a new team and you roll to like 17-0, 18-0, whatever they were before Florida got them. It's tough to take a group of guys where it's going so well so early, and then you start not playing as well, or you lose a couple games, and then that month we're talking about there where they didn't stink, but they're certainly their play wasn't as strong as it was, and we all knew it, and he knew it, and it's kind of like, when do you really lay into them, and when do you really have that come to Jesus moment with your team where you just really, I know that happened early 2 years ago with that World Series team. I think that happened around the time they played in that preseason tournament and lost to a couple of average to bad baseball teams. After that was when I think the players saw, like, okay, coach, not that he didn't mean business, but we don't ever want to see that side of coach again. And I think trying to decide when to have that kind of moment with your team was probably really tough with this group because they were playing so well, their ceiling's so high, and they're such a fun-loving group that you don't want to risk at all taking that out of them because that's how they win. So if they carry that same approach into Omaha, I think it's a huge advantage for these guys because they don't seem to press. They don't seem to press. They seem to be out there playing baseball, having fun, and being a very confident team.
So, Billy, earlier I asked you, and then we went back to Evan Aschenbeck, if you could point out a key thing or two that we need to see in the game against Florida. Is it, obviously you want to see Prager go as long as possible, but is there something you look at as like, this is really something that has to happen in this matchup?
Yeah, I think whoever pitches, this is in every game, go as long as possible. Slosh is going to play matchups. Like you said it earlier, and I think you need to dig, or Bronny said it, one of y'all, you need to dig deeper into that. When you try to figure out Jim Schlossnagle, you have to understand he's trying to win a regional right now. That's what he's trying to do. Now, as that regional goes on, he's also trying to win the whole thing. So he'll be looking ahead to a potential final series. But right now, he is trying to win a regional. And you know what you don't have to. It's not, we've seen it. There's a couple teams here that took this path, including Florida. You don't have to win your first two games of a regional. But if you do, you're probably winning that regional. If you do, the odds of you winning that regional go through the roof. Stanford proved otherwise last year against none other than A&M. With none other than Braden Montgomery helping to lead the charge. But your chances of winning this regional, which is the goal right now, go through the damn roof if you go 2-0. So right now, today, as we sit here on Friday, and A&M's playing tomorrow night, Jim Schlossnagle is figuring out, how can I go 2-0? That is, I believe, consuming him right now. So the decisions he makes, whether it be pitching and who to start, when to go to Cortez, when to go to Aschenbeck, who to pitch Cortez against, if you think, it's one of these games where he might get you 4, if not 5 innings, all of those decisions are going to tie into getting to 2-0. So you're looking at Florida and you're looking at a winner of a Kentucky NC State game, which is really interesting because to me those two teams are so different, and Kentucky is so unique. So if you don't think that's kind of lying out there too, of okay, here's Kentucky with their base stealing and their hit and runs and their bunting and that huge area behind home plate in Omaha. Don't forget that. That huge outfield. You think about all of those things on who you're playing, who you're pitching, what you're doing, what your lineup's going to look like. I don't think there's a whole lot of flexibility on that front for Slosh. I think that's going to be fairly set, save maybe the lineup order because they're not set into anything. You could see some tweaks. With Braden, we knew exactly what it was going to look like, right? It would have been a shock if, like, two guys got flip-flopped in the order. Now you saw what it looked like against Oregon in game 2. So that's only been one game out of the 50-something they've played. So you could see that being changed up a little bit potentially. So, again, he's trying to win too, Nuño. And I know they've got to win at least 5, if not as many as like 7 to get out of this thing. But right now, the real order of business is to win 2. And I really believe that. I believe it's beat Florida and win the second one. Like that is the mindset and how he's approaching and attacking. It's not just one game, but it's 2. But against Florida in specific, you asked me and you you brought up starting pitcher, Prager, and I say, yeah, starting pitching, they're going to have to get innings this whole series. So when assuming they go to a third game, right? That's not going to be Prager or Lampkin. And, so is it Tanner Jones? Does he go with the starter in Rudis? Does he, whatever he does, these starting guys have got to come out and keep A&M from, playing in a hole, which they really didn't against Texas. I mean, they were down 1-0. Prager made one pitch, and he got out of some trouble. He wasn't his sharpest self, but then he became his sharpest self. That was an incredible outing, by the way, by Prager 2 starts ago. So let's not forget that. That was actually a lights-out pitching performance. He gave up 2 solo homers, 2 runs, struck out. What did he strike out? 10 or so. But to me, it's the lineup when we're talking about hitting this weekend. I think you guys talked about it. I do think if A&M's to be playing next weekend, I think some form combo of Jace and Gavin, either one of them's going to go completely unconscious or both of them are going to play well. That combo can, I think, really, then you start seeing those runs scored. And I know they did against Oregon. And look, they did in that final game against ULM. So the runs were, I was about to say the points. I was going to do exactly what I get on everybody about. The runs were hard to come by against Texas. There's no question about it. LBJ pitched lights out. You're starting to wonder, man, I hope the bats are here. Then they go 5 home runs. And in the last 2 games, to lose Braden and basically not have him, and only hit a couple home runs here at Bluebell where they just drop bombs, and you still look up and they scored 25 runs in 2 games. So in their last 3 games, they've gone 9, 10, and 15 in their last 3 games. So when you talk about a hot baseball team, and you're talking about the Florida Gators, A&M's 5-0 in their last 5. And like we just said about their last 3, they've been killing people. I do think Florida going on the road to Stillwater and on the road to Clemson, they had tougher draws, no question. I think the key will be obviously Flosh talked about it. You're gonna do everything you can to keep Cags from beating you. Just like they did with Condon when he was here. You do everything you can to keep him from, just crushing you. If he's gonna hit 2 home runs, make him be 2 solo home runs. If he's gonna hit 1 and a double, leave him with a couple RBIs, not 5, 6. So that's the key with him, and walk him when you have to. But you can't let the other guys do a bunch of damage, and that's what's been happening for Florida lately. They've been hitting up and down the lineup, and on the flip side for A&M, I mentioned Gavin and Jace, but to me the key is those other guys keep doing what they did this past weekend. Keep going. You need to see Appel and Schott and Burton. And I've got a prediction for a big weekend from Teddy Two Bags. Caden Sorrell down there at the bottom, right? Is it going to be, Sorrell, Kent, Camarillo? I guess it's Camarillo, Kent, and Chestnut down at the bottom with Sorrell right above that. That bottom of the lineup has the potential to cause some real problems. And I think you're going to have to score against Florida. And in order to do that, those guys are going to have to cause problems. And they're going to have to be on base when Gavin and Jace come to play.
All right, let's hit a break here, Billy. Got some football stuff to get into on the other side. Did he just hang up on me? That was an abrupt ending to that. I don't know if I appreciate his tone there. All right, we'll get into more with Billy on the other side of the break. Right now, we're talking Hush and Whisper. So you know about the Father's Day special, but I also want to remind you all that the George Strait concert's here this weekend, obviously tomorrow Saturday, right? Yeah, so it'll be there tomorrow. Why don't you go pre-party there at Hush and Whisper? And while you're there at Hush and Whisper, enjoy the drinks, the setting, the surrounds, everything about it, right? But until Father's Day, you can get yourself half off of a polo that they sell there, and they have nice gear there when you buy yourself a bottle. For every bottle purchase, get a polo for half off. So that's why you need to go to Hush and Whisper and to enjoy the greatness that is the distillery and cocktail lounge, founded to defy convention and distill true grain-to-glass spirits. They're located in downtown Bryan. Many of you are listening are either going to Omaha, but those coming to College Station need to go hang out there at downtown Bryan's Versco building for Hush and Whisper with their white whiskey, their original vodka, and their original gin. And they source only the finest local ingredients, committed to the highest quality of production. They want to share more than an exceptionally crafted spirit. They want to create an experience out there. And yes, it's a place where you can enjoy a cocktail crafted with premium local spirits. But more than that, they want to inspire moments of discovery. You can find them at hushandwhisper.com. They are open Thursday and Friday, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 219 North Main Street, the website, hushandwhisper.com. Don't forget, now through the 15th, for every bottle purchase, get a polo for half off. It's Hush and Whisper. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy is with us in the real studio. I'm here in Florida for one more day. And Billy, you tweeted it, well, Alyssa Lang tweeted it at you, I should say, and it caught my attention. And it's about Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman, case for QB1 in the 2025 draft. Trevor Sickmian getting that tweet out there. Billy, just I'm not used to seeing Connor getting that kind of love out there, but he makes a compelling case. I didn't read all of it. I skimmed through it, and there's some interesting things that he said. Have you had a chance to kind of look at it?
Yeah, and I'm going to read it after this. I actually was texting with Alyssa and CD Doring about it, and we've got our regular group chat where we just basically talk smack to each other, and Doring is not going to be able to make it up there to Omaha till at least Thursday, so the Aggies need to play their part in ensuring that he doesn't have to squeeze in that trip. But the concept, when I saw the headline to the article, and I didn't want to quote tweet it yet until I read it, because I want to have a little comment about it, as if I've read it. So I would encourage Aggies to read it because I think he does a really good job. But also, just the topic, I can kind of understand where he's gonna go. I mean, there are numbers to say, wow, if you project this out, there is the eye test. There is, I wonder how much mention will be made of Colin Klein and his offense and what he did with not one but two quarterbacks last year when one of them got hurt and brought in a true freshman. You look at Connor, and he started what? I believe it's 8 games, if I'm not mistaken. He was a 5-star quarterback, the same level as Quinn Ewers and Cade Klubnik in the same class, and then Ewers reclassified and went to Ohio State and then came back. They were all 3 5-stars. Take your pick on who you thought was going to be the best college football player. Jimbo Fisher made his pick. Now Ewers, I think when Connor committed, I think Ewers, he was already at Ohio State. That had happened. And then he was kind of coming back into the mix after that semester from Texas. And again, I told you recently, like Quinn and his camp reached out more than a couple times to A&M. And again, I've said this publicly. I don't think the Aggies would have gotten him, because I think Texas was in a particularly, at that time, you got to remember, they were in a particularly desperate quarterback situation. He was actually about to go to Tech. So I think had A&M said, you know what, yeah, we will take you and Connor, because Ewers was they were willing to do that. But the Aggies said, no, Jimbo was all in on Connor because Connor was all in on A&M, and he wasn't going to betray that at the finish line. Maybe had it been earlier in the process, it was at the finish line. He was not going to do that. Well, I think what would have happened is you could have compromised Connor, and then Quinn, Texas still would have stepped up with whatever NIL package they put together to get him away from Tech. And the Aggies, contrary to what was being said, were not playing. No one really was swimming in those kind of waters at that time. But those 3 guys are all, their careers are kind of intertwined. They kind of are and will be these 3 5-star Texas quarterbacks essentially in one class. So my point is, don't lose sight of the fact that Connor was one of those guys. And when Connor got his first start, it was actually an incredible performance against Ole Miss, where the Aggies were heavy underdogs. It wasn't a good A&M team that season. Wasn't that the 5-7 season? Yeah, they were 5-7. Or no, yeah, that was a couple weeks before. He had an incredible start against Ole Miss. When you look at the numbers, you look at some of the hits he took to hang in there. It was an awesome performance, and even the numbers would play that out. I forget at the time, someone said the best start by a true freshman in an SEC football game in however many years, by the metrics and numbers. Then a couple weeks later, he comes back after a rough outing by him and the whole team against Auburn. And what does he do? He knocks off number 5 LSU and made some incredible throws and heady plays, winning plays along the way. Comes up this year. if you go watch that Miami game and you don't come away going, man, that is a tough son of a gun. If you don't come away going, I remember, I don't know who it was I was talking to, but they were saying, I don't remember if it was Tebow or if it was Rodgers before that Auburn game. And they were just talking about, man, I've got a hell of a highlight package. I've got a heck of a highlight package, in case it was Tebow, of just throws Connor made in that Miami game that were incredible throws, just from the pressure, where he was delivering the football and things like that. So anyway, I understand if you went and watched Miami and you went and watched LSU and you went and watched Ole Miss, him against real teams and real athletes on that side of the ball, you could see, like, if this guy's healthy, it could take off. And I've told you multiple times, when they came in for that Auburn game, we were having the discussion over dinner of where does Connor fit in the SEC? And he's right there. He's right there with Jaden Daniels and Jackson Dart was kind of the discussion. Jaden from then just completely took off. But at that moment, as they were preparing to play Auburn the next day, conversation was, Wigman is as good as any quarterback in the league, and he started at that time like 7 games in his career. So I understand where the basis of this article is coming from, and I look forward to reading it here over lunch.
Billy, before I let you go, unless you want to stay longer, do you think all 3 quarterbacks, those Texas quarterbacks, K. Klubnik, Connor Wigman, Quinn Ewers, will be considered elite quarterbacks at the end of this year?
Probably. What I've seen from Connor, I haven't necessarily seen from Klubnik, and that surprises me, because I thought that was one of my favorite things about Klubnik at Westlake was, man, he just was such a winner and just a flat-out fighter and dog. And maybe Dabo is getting to him a little bit there, but he just seemed like not – and I've seen moments of it. I've watched enough of them. I've seen him really play winning football, but I've just seen him look like the pressure's gotten to him. I've seen him look maybe a step tentative or confused, so I think actually he might have the furthest to come. Wigman's got the furthest to come in that he's learning a new offense, and he's got to just get back on the field and get playing. But, I mean, in terms of, like, pre-injury to Connor, I thought he was on a faster track. But, yeah, I do think so, though, David. I believe in Cade, and I do think, contrary to what everybody jokes about Clemson, I think there's plenty of enough talent around him in the ACC. But I think if I'm ranking them right now, you go Ewers with what he's had and what he's done. Although I do think he's overhyped. I do, because I think the hype is – I think he and Shedeur Sanders are both overhyped for 2 very different reasons, because Shedeur hasn't accomplished nearly as much. But Quinn had, no pun intended with the car show they've got going on down there in Austin, but he's got the keys to a Maserati. And there were several games this year where I watched him, and sometimes I go, damn, that guy is dialed in. He looks really good. But they're almost just as many where I watch, and I said, he's lucky he's got the players around him, and he's lucky that they're playing against far inferior opposition, or he'd be taking an L today.
Billy, let me read you one last thing from this article, and I know you're going to, but because I think this is very important.
Okay.
Under pressure, PFF passing grade is more unstable, but provides important information. And Wegman's 86.5 mark placed in the 97th percentile.
Wow.
On 3rd and 7 or longer, he earned an 87.9 grade, another strong showing in a key metric. And we saw it in several games when he was getting hit, especially in that Miami game.
I'm
just to react to that.
I'm telling you, David, that's a great stat. And I'm telling you, run the football. If they can run the football, and I think with an improved O-line, they've got the talent and the bodies and the depth to do it, and the physicality. And Colin Klein, you guys watch, he's very creative in the run game. He's problematic for DCs. And I think that's a big part of what Mike Elko was drawn to, because Mike Elko's a guy that understands, if I can stop the run, I can beat you. And I guarantee you, when he's watching Colin Klein's offenses, he's got his defensive coordinator hat on going, man, this would be difficult to defend right here. And that combo, if they can run the football, you keep Connor out of 3rd and long too much. You also wear a defense down, but you let him have time to throw. If they can run the football and keep them ahead of the chains and let him have time to throw, I think he can be elite this year. And these receivers that we know are quality receivers, but we want to know if they can be great. He can help make them great, and a running game can help make them great. That's the X factor that I don't think people talk about enough. Is if Connor Wigman's dealing and he's putting the ball exactly where it needs to be, and he knows exactly, he's got that intuition to know where the open guy is, he's the type quarterback that's going to make everyone around him look better, not just the O-lineman by extending plays, but also the receivers by throwing it where it needs to be thrown, and also letting guys like Moose and Noah make plays up in the air with the football in one-on-one situations.
No Connor at UFC 303, buddy.
We go from one Connor to the other, both coming back from leg injuries, but one of them has his head on straight and the other one doesn't. Conor McGregor is not. Nuño, you need to give that one up. That guy's he's a novelty act at this point. That's all he is. That's all he is.
But we were all interested. We all wanted to watch.
I wouldn't have paid for that one. I wouldn't have paid. I would have watched highlights of him and Michael Chandler. But you're right. I mean, he was fascinating for a while, and now, But UFC always stays interesting and competitive, though. I'll tell you what's more interesting, though. A little more interesting is going to be what happens in Nebraska starting tomorrow. Starting today, actually. I mean, we got College World Series kicks off today. I mean, and if you're an Aggie, you better be interested in what's happening on the other side of that bracket, because we know what the goal is. The goal is to win the regional this weekend, and if they can do that, it's going to be fun. I mean, look, Nuño, 25% of these teams playing this weekend are going to be playing for a national championship a week from now. So, throw out all the other stuff. You could just say Aggies have a 25% chance to be playing for the title. I know that's oversimplifying. They probably have a better chance, actually. I don't know what that shot is, but, man, tell me you can't see A&M beating or losing to every team in that side of the bracket. And if a Florida coach or fan, or an NC State coach or fan or player, or if a Kentucky one said any differently, they'd be lying. I mean, this is a very balanced side of the bracket. I don't think anyone really and truly stands out. I mean, any of these 4 teams, if they play at their best this weekend, I would say they'll win, but what if 2 of them play at their best? Then we'll be in for a treat. But anybody can beat anybody, but I think this is more about momentum now. So if you're the Aggies and you can win one tomorrow, and you go play Kentucky or NC State, like, what teams don't want is for this A&M team to get momentum and get hot. And I think they went into Omaha just like everybody, but I think this team went in feeling really, really good, to where, like, their down period of baseball is long behind them, because they are sky high right now, and they're starting to do a lot of the things that help them look like the best team in the country for a good part of the season.
Billy, I appreciate you, sir. Your favorite segment's coming up, more OB with David Nuño. What'd you call us when we do the show together? I forgot the name.
It's not the Go Hour. I've just started to call it Oluño. Because somehow the word loon is in there. It's a combination of Olin and Nuño. It's got, like a little Spanish flair to it. But
Oluño.
It's just Oluño. And it sounds like the hour is. It's just it's Oluño. And there's no the in show. It's just, what are you doing? He's like, you just say, I'm listening to Oluño. 8 a.m., it's time for Oluño.
We can get a shirt of that made, too.
Yeah.
A jacked old guy with Uncle Rico hair.
Perfect.
Thanks, buddy.
Later.
All right, Billy Liucci. All right, when we come back, more Oluño. Right now, we're talking Costa Vida. So if you are coming to town this weekend, right, what you need to do is make sure you go visit the George Strait concert. Parker McCollum is going to be performing there. You get to Kyle Field, and you look for the American Club at Kyle, because you can get yourself some Costa Vida. You've heard me talk about it. Maybe you haven't been able to go to South College Station. That's okay. When you get to Kyle, Go check it out. You can get yourself some chili lime chicken, some sweet pork nachos, chips, and queso, and I think you're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. And let's just say, man, I'm not going to the concert. I couldn't get to the tickets for it. It sold out too quick for me, but I am in town. I want to go eat good food. You go to South College Station and you go to Costa Vida, where the food is fresh, and it's fresh Mex done the right way, where every ingredient does matter there. They've got breakfast that is phenomenal. The breakfast tacos get you started with some great coffee to go. You got yourself some quesadillas. You got yourself some tortilla soup, and a great menu when you go to Costa Vida. They are Aggie owned and operated. Holly runs the show there, and she is so polite, so awesome, and such an Aggie fan. That's why you can find her at all the Aggie events out there. Go check it out. 4501 Mills Park Circle in South College Station. That is 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. We call it Costa Vida because that's the name. Go check it out. All right. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance, Nuño, Uncle Rico himself, Olin back in the chair there.
No, I got the product in my hair again today. So I'm.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I no longer have the Uncle Rico look.
Yeah, I missed. I just think like the Uncle Rico look is just your look, man.
It's the Uncle Rico Suave.
Uncle Rico Suave.
Actually, that's you. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Not anymore.
You're Theo.
Interesting.
Theo Rico Suave.
Here's the truth, OB. My kids make me feel, not only my kids, the folks that we work with at TexAgs make me feel very old.
Are you kidding me?
And not cool. Like some of the comments I make, like, what I think is hip, they look at me like, nobody talks like that. So I feel totally dated, and just old, buddy.
Yeah, you're breaking my heart there, Dave.
Hey, did you hear some of the negative feedback that we old guys got driving? Apparently, we're not the best drivers, according to the youngers that work at TexAgs.
Really? Oh, what was the?
Apparently, I don't pay attention to the road.
Well, you do tend to be looking up things on your phone while you're driving.
I try not to, but I guess I do. I guess it's something I do. I have been known to do it. That's
Seems like
stop.
when
Now it's been brought to my attention.
Seems like whenever I'm driving, everybody's asleep.
Well, no, we have our eyes closed because we're scared.
No, you're asleep, man. Coming back from Memphis, you and
no
Katie
doubt. I was
100%
asleep on that one. Yeah, that's right. Hey, I wanted to bring this up to you because I was listening to Reese Davis and I read a little bit about some comments he made. And the reality is, yeah, he's right. But I'm just curious. So he thinks that the outrage over playoff debates, with the expanded field are going to go away. Here's his quote. I think the outrage and vitriol is going to be less because it's not going to resonate. I'm not saying that it's not going to be intense in those quarters, but last year you had Florida State national championship pedigree undefeated. I'm saying once you get to 12 instead of 4, you're talking about 3 loss versus 2 loss as opposed to the undefeateds. It's not going to resonate outside of those precincts. What do you think about that?
I agree. Plus, again, give us a couple of years, it's going to be 16. So then you're going to be arguing over who's 16 and who's 17. But it's one thing when you're like in a situation what A&M was in 2020 when you absolutely deserve to be in there, but you're talking about 4 spots. So the team like Notre Dame or Ohio State with the higher profile gets in, even though they don't have as good a resume, So then but when you're arguing over who's 13 and who's 12, yes, I don't think it's going to capture the nation's attention quite like it does. I mean, look at basketball, right? There's always, hey, who got shunned? And there's some outrage until the game starts, and then nobody really cares.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just curious of what we will complain about then, right? Because there's always something we're going to complain about, not necessarily we as a show, OB, but like, will the new argument go back to this is too big of a field? We need to get it down back to to 4, get to 8.
Oh, I think 8 would have been perfect if it had been 8. The reason how come I always thought 8 was perfect, and that would have given the way it is now 4 conference champions automatic, because what that would do is make your conference championship so important that it would mean something. You start adding too many teams and it doesn't mean anything to win a conference championship. So like in basketball, who really cares if you win a conference championship? I mean, it's nice to celebrate and get a trophy, but no one focuses on that. If you needed to be a conference champion to absolutely nail down a spot, and I know they're going to let the conference champions in, but I mean, if you didn't know that you were going to get in. But that said, I think what we're going to be angry about, I think the next thing it's going to be angry about is the idea that some teams only have to play, 2, maybe 3 games to win a conference championship, while other teams are going to play 4, and that'll be rectified when they go to 16. And then it'll be then I don't know that they'll have anything to complain about other than somebody who's number 17 is angry because they're not 16, and then everybody's going to come back and say, well, then you should have been better.
Obi, let's hit a break here. We'll come back. There's a good baseball question that came our way from Brent, so I'll have Matthew ask that question. We'll get to some final text messages at 979-693-1150. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. today with Double Dave's caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls, a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's, who have been serving Aggieland since 1984. They do have your favorite pizza, and they do have those world-famous pepperoni rolls with reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. Nuño time here on TexAgs Radio.
Hey, David.
OB. Yes, sir?
Would you take the pizza rolls or the one-topping pizza?
I haven't had pizza rolls in a while, so I'd say pizza rolls.
Okay.
The pizza rolls.
That's it. Okay.
1,000%.
That's okay. That's
They're both great.
Yeah.
I mean, if they give it to me, I'll take them both. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, if you had to make a choice, you're going for the pizza rolls.
Yeah, I'll probably go for the pizza rolls. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Serve. Matthew Dawson's got a question that came in that I found very interesting, OB, from Brent, class of 04.
Well, he said, I'm assuming David, asked yesterday, who could possibly have a breakout showing in Omaha? Well, he says, my challenge to you, tell me someone in our lineup that has no chance of breaking out, having a breakout showing in Omaha.
So, OB, if I were to tell you, I don't know, Ali Camarillo had a breakout performance, would you buy it?
Yes. Yes, I would.
If I told you Caden Sorrell.
Yes. Yes, I would.
Travis Chestnut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah. I don't know, a guy named Jace Lavalette.
Well, he's already broken out, but yeah, sure, break it. Yeah, the point is, we've talked about A&M is dangerous up and down the lineup from 1 to 9.
Yeah.
Even without Braden Montgomery. So Braden Montgomery is my answer to who's the one guy that just absolutely can't break out this week. I'll say Braden Montgomery. He's the one guy that won't. Anybody else in that lineup?
And Shane Sadeo, right? Like if we're talking about a breakout performance. Now, offensively, we kind of go through it. From a pitching staff perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Lampkin gets back to being, really good, or the same thing with Tanner Jones. Like they've shown it more brief than some of the other guys we spoke about, but they've shown it.
Yes, they have. They have the ability. And are you going to rise to the occasion? And quite frankly, that big park might be helpful to some of those pitchers.
Yep. All right, OB. I'll ask you the same thing I asked the guys on the baseball bunch as we closed out. Give me the headline on Monday.
The headline on Monday? Mm-hmm. Aggies prepare for fill in the blank, because I don't know who's going to win the other game. But I'm looking for A&M to win this weekend. And so on Monday, now Sunday, the headline is going to be Aggies win or Aggies
win. There you go. Obi, thank you for coming in for a little bit, buddy. Appreciate you. That's going to do it for TexAgs Radio here on a Friday. Keep it with TexAgs.com for all of your College World Series information. We'll see you all on Monday.